NBA opening night on TNT tips off with Zion's NBA debut. The Pelicans traveling to face the defending champion Raptors are going to get their rings that night. And then in LA, it's the battle. Lakers at Clippers. Grant, Mr. Turner, give us a little TNT on what to expect from that LA night. It's going to be intense, right?
Well, with all due respect to the great urban philosopher, Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, I'll take the Mr. Turner title from you. Thank you, Rachel. No, but it will be intense indeed. All that star power. Teams have so much to prove in this situation, and they have these elite level expectations, championship expectations. So they'll both want to send a message to one another. So I expect a playoff atmosphere in Staples Center
opening night.
LeBron's never wanted to shy away from a national spotlight game. He always wants to show up and make it a huge ordeal. You can talk about Anthony Davis trying to repair, rehab his image after last year. And then on the other end, the Clippers are trying to prove they're the marquee franchise in LA, not the purple and gold. And then anytime you got Patrick Beverley in the mix, that's like lighting fireworks and just letting it go out.
And by the way, you talk to both of those teams, and they're like, oh, we're not looking at who's in the building. We all have champions. We're looking at the championship. I'm like, y'all are looking at who's in the building. ESPN's opening night is just the next night, Wednesday, October 23rd. We've got a great doubleheader featuring 4 playoff teams from last season. 7:30 Eastern, we've got Celtics Sixers, followed by Nuggets at Trailblazers at 10 o'clock Eastern, which you may notice, that is 30 minutes earlier than the usual tip time. Now, this is a cool new thing the NBA is doing this year. They're moving up start times to make it easier for fans to catch those late West Coast games. They've cut the number of national TV 10:30 games. There were 57 of those guys last season. Now there's only 33. So that's a lot more that people on the eastern side of the country are going to be able to see of the western side of the country teams. Now, Amin, of those Eastern Conference teams, though, Philly and Boston both made big changes in the offseason. Who do you trust more of those two teams?
Well, those two teams play on our opening night on ESPN, and that's what I like to call the Horford Cup. It all comes down to Boston losing Horford. I thought losing Kyrie and replacing him with Kemba was going to work out pretty well for him as a fit. But Horford was so pivotal to everything they did offensively and defensively. They didn't really replace that hole there. And so their loss, unfortunately, is Philadelphia's gain, because Philadelphia lost Jimmy Butler, the so-called adult in the room, according to Coach Brett Brown. Al Horford fills in that role perfectly. So I think Philly is the team I trust more.
It's interesting. You know, both teams are going through transition, as you talked about. Horford, as great as he is and as much value as he brought to all the teams he's been a part of, I still want to see how all that works in terms of play on the court. Horford, along with Embiid and Simmons, you missed the shooting of Butler, J.J. Redick. Obviously, Harris is, I think, will have a big year for the Clippers. And then don't forget those young stars over in Boston. I mean, a couple years ago, they carried that franchise with Kyrie Irving out. You add Kemba Walker. A lot of uncertainty, but I think one of these teams will take a big step this summer. Maybe both of them will this season, and but it'll be a great opening night game.
I feel like it's too early to predict how those two teams are going to finish. I will predict, though, how Boston is going to start. I think the fact that 4 of those guys are playing with Team USA, they're together for this late part of the summer. Kemba Walker's getting chemistry with his new teammates. They're going to the finishing school of Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr, which is pretty good, right? So I think that chemistry we're going to see pay off for them early in the season. They might get off to an early start, and then we'll have to see what happens after that. I want to get a list of the rest of opening week. So starting on Thursday, TNT has Russell Westbrook's first game with the Rockets. They're going to host the Bucks. And then the Warriors open up that new Chase Center, or as Amin knows, I like to call it the ATM, because it's going to make so much cash for those owners. They will play against the Clippers. And then on ESPN on Friday, October 25th, our doubleheader tips off with Mavericks at Pelicans. Some young stars there, Luka Doncic, Zion Williamson. And then it ends with the Jazz at Lakers, which is, I think, going to be a little bit of a rumble in the Western Conference there. Grant, let's go back to Russ and Harden, though. They played together with the Thunder. That was a long time ago, though. They both have 2 of the highest usage rates in NBA history. How are they going to play together?
You know what? This is the exact same thing we were saying 2 years ago when Chris Paul joined. Both had high usage rates. Can they coexist? Obviously, things didn't play out this past year, but I thought last season the 2 of them had a great year and obviously came very close to dethroning Golden State. Westbrook and Harden, you know, they played together before. They will figure out how to coexist and respect one another. The 2 reigning MVPs the last couple of years. There's a little bit of uncertainty. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the league. There's no definite Cleveland, no definite Golden State in the preseason. But this team, if they can figure out, and get it together, they have a chance to really be dangerous with two spectacular guys thriving in that system with Mike D'Antoni.
I am very interested to see, because really if you look at their numbers and the way they play, it's Russ who should have the ball in his hands more, because James should be shooting, and I don't know if it's going to work out that way. I mean, I want to get you on the Jazz, because you were talking a little bit as we settled down here for the show. Where do you think Utah ranks out after the moves they made, getting Mike Conley and bolstering some of their depth?
Oh, no, they had as good an offseason, I thought, as anyone. But the question I ask is, how quickly can their learning curve occur? Now, as luck would have it, there's so many other teams that have made massive changes that they're all doing kind of the same thing. But ideally, you want to get ahead of the curve, especially with Coach Snyder's playbook. It is a little bit more complex. I want to see how quickly that they can assimilate all those new pieces. Remember, it's not just Mike Conley. It's also Ed Davis. It's also Emmanuel Mudiay. It's also Bojan Bogdanovic. So these are a lot of new faces doing a lot of things that they haven't had people necessarily do in the past. How quickly they can come together is going to be pivotal.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.